However, there are many things which Bitcoin and meme coins share, at least the best ones, and that is their extreme cultiness, right? Their extreme, almost like a neo-religious type zeal that their holders embody. And from that particular perspective, there are a ton of similarities.
Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Namada, the shielded asset hub rewarding you to protect the multi-chain. So not only can you protect your own data across any asset and any chain, but you also get shielding rewards for strengthening data privacy protections for everyone. So you can check them out at namada.net and follow their mainnet launch. Stick around, you're going to be hearing all about them later in the program. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Supra, the vertically integrated L1 for super dApps. They have a very cool new product coming out called Supra Containers. So head over to supra.com. That's supra.com/containers. So if you're building on an L1 and it feels a little bit crowded, or the complexity of L2 and L3s are getting you down, just head over to Supra. They'll get you sorted. Thank me later.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bell Curve. Before we jump in, quick disclaimer. The views expressed by my co-host today are their personal views, and they do not represent the views of any organization with which the co-hosts are associated with. Nothing in the episode is construed or relied upon as financial, technical, tax, legal, or other advice. You know the deal. Now, let's jump into the episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bell Curve. Today I'm joined by Murad Mahmudov. Murad, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you, man. I know most of the time today you're very focused on meme coins, and that's probably how most people on crypto Twitter know you. But we were actually just catching up a little bit. We bumped into each other, albeit very briefly, back in 2018 or 2019, actually, when you recorded an episode, one of the very first episode of Anthony Pompliano's podcast on Bitcoin. And so I always knew you as this very Bitcoin centric, Bitcoin first kind of guy, and we'll link it in the show notes, but I still think that's one of the best episodes on Bitcoin that's ever been recorded. It was a really strong episode. So I want to get into your whole sort of transition, like how you found Bitcoin, how that ultimately led you to being very enthusiastic about meme coins. But first, for the audience, could you just give everyone a little bit of a background on you, who you are as a person, and then maybe like take us through how you found Bitcoin?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Murad. I'm originally from Azerbaijan. Went to school in the United States. Studied finance and Chinese. Did a year abroad in China, and that was 2013. So like that was like during that bubble, a few years before the 2017 bubble. And I was really lucky to be kind of in the right place at the right time. Met employee number 5 at what was then called OKCoin. It's now OKX, and that was an American guy. So we were kind of like in foreigner circles in Beijing, and I was just kind of lucky to kind of be exposed to the ecosystem early on. Only bought a couple of BTC. Should have bought more, but when kind of 2016 came rolling back, I sort of like started taking crypto much more seriously, and have been doing one thing or another in crypto since.
Nice. Very cool, man. Well, I want to, maybe rewind the clock back to 2019 and get your perspective. Because, at that time, I kind of listened in on this hour and a half episode that you did with Pomp. You were talking about Bitcoin, and you kind of represented what, at the time, I'm not sure people were calling it this, but kind of this very Bitcoin maximalist viewpoint where, Bitcoin had these very attractive monetary properties. You were kind of not super excited about or bullish on other altcoins. And actually, you were so bullish on Bitcoin. I went back and listened to the episode this morning. You had a $160 trillion price prediction for the market cap of Bitcoin. So $10 million per Bitcoin. And so I want to get what's your current stance on Bitcoin? Do you stand by those sort of price predictions? Or would you still describe yourself as kind of a Bitcoin first thinker when it comes to crypto investing? Or what's your perspective on Bitcoin these days?
Yeah, so literally nothing has changed about my view since then. I stand by every single statement that was made during that podcast. And my target is still the same, 200 trillion in today's dollars. I think that's totally reasonable. The logic is simple. I believe the global money supply, kind of like measured in today's dollars, is like 105 trillion. And that's kind of with this inflationary money, which is a subpar product for what it does. So if you actually have a deflationary money, call it a 2x improvement in product market fit, you can easily have double the market cap, because right now a lot of that is kind of being replaced by real estate and stocks and bonds. And uh, I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. So
I do.
if it's kind of like a pure neo gold with even superior like mathematical qualities than gold itself, then it can easily be 200 trillion. I don't think that's crazy at all. So to put it briefly, I nothing about my views have changed. And when it comes to stores of value, I am as much of a Bitcoin maximalist as I've ever was.
Mm. You know, I think a lot of the arguments that you referenced during that podcast, you know, you were talking about M2 creation and, you know, you were kind of confined to the 2019 statistics where, you know, we increased the M2 money supply by 6%. And, you know, little did you know that in the next, the next 5 years after that, there was going to be something like 60 or 70% of all the money that's ever been printed by the US was going to get created in the next 5 years. And you were talking initially about some seizures from overactive governments and things like that. And obviously that massively accelerated in the 5 years. So I think a lot of, you know, what you mentioned in that podcast as arguments in terms of being pro Bitcoin definitely stands the test of time. So help me like connect these two versions of yourself, because one, you've got Murad, the Bitcoin maximalist, and most of the Bitcoin maximalists that I know or follow don't really look too kindly on meme coins, right? They have a very disparaging sort of view of it, or anything that isn't necessarily Bitcoin. It's a, you know, a distraction at best, and kind of you know, there's obviously a worse way of looking at it as well. So walk us through, how did you get from, like, help us bridge the gap there in between these two sides of you.
Yeah, for sure. But so first of all, we need to understand that your opinions as a trader, and then your opinions as kind of a long-term investor,
Mm,
and then your opinions as sort of like a monetary guy, and
mhm,
your opinions like from an ideology perspective, like those can all be completely different, right? So
mm,
depending on the angle from which you view the situation, your opinion would be different. um, I actually, as crazy as it sounds, think that sort of the thousands of blogs and books and all of that Bitcoin maximalist literature was kind of like perfect preparation to understand meme coins. And the reason for that is can be concisely explained with horseshoe theory,
mm,
which I'm sure you've heard about before. The sense being that a lot of people look at many different things, but for example, the kind of political spectrum as a line, where the far right and far left, for example, are the polar opposites, right? But a lot of people have noted the extreme similarities between the two, and really they are much more similar than they are different, right?
yeah.
I think that the meme coin super cycle, which is currently, in my opinion, underway or in the
Mm,
early stages of it, are obviously a byproduct of kind of like the VC token industrial complex that exists in crypto,
mm,
which itself is a byproduct of kind of like the fiat monetary system, right?
mm,
So meme coins existing, they kind of arise emergently because of outside forces, right? And if you study sort of a dozen or so trends inside the crypto industry and combine them with a dozen or so trends that are kind of happening in the world at large, the fact that something like this is happening starts to be seen as less crazy, right? But um, Bitcoin is a money, right? But meme coins, they are not a money. Some people
mm,
think of them as social currencies. I don't believe they are. They are something different altogether. And however, there are many things which Bitcoin and meme coins share, at least the best ones, and that is sort of their extreme cultiness, right? Their
mhm.
extreme, almost like a neo-religious type zeal that their holders embody. And from that particular perspective, there are a ton of similarities, right? I don't want to kind of run ahead of myself, but definitely happy to dig deeper into that topic, kind of in the coming minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a ton that I want to dig in there with you. So I love the horseshoe theory. I actually just finished watching Peaky Blinders. There's a great speech. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but it's a great speech that the protagonist gives about, he's referring to fascism and socialism, and he's like, you go far enough on the right and the left and you meet, and then there's just me in the middle trying to have an honest business. I was like, damn, I bet a lot of people feel like that at the current moment.
Yep.
But here's a way that I would connect Bitcoin and meme coins is that there's the same underlying catalyst and driver. And the same underlying catalyst and driver is this structural issue with the credit-based fiat system that we all have, right? The money is breaking. And so there are a couple of, on the one hand, what that should do is push people towards a much more fundamentally sound alternative, right? Which is Bitcoin. The other thing that a breaking fiat currency system does is push people towards speculation, right? And this happens during periods of inflation as well. Just, hey, my money's depreciating and there's no way to get ahead. So I might as well take these really super risky behaviors and just gamble, right? And so there's the same underlying cause, but it manifests itself in very different ways. And so on the one hand, if you're bullish on Bitcoin, the irony is you should probably be really bullish on things like meme coins, and maybe previously this was NFTs and things like that. Is that roughly the way that you see them, or I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much aligned with what you just described.
Mm,
It pretty much boils down to empathizing with retail,
mm,
because if this particular cycle that we are in is anywhere even remotely similar to the past 2 or 3 cycles in crypto, then the we need to understand that kind of like the altcoin complex that exists, the VC business model that exists in crypto, um, and the parabolas that often occur in kind of year 4 of these cycles, none of these can exist without a sudden influx of retail, right? And
yeah.
if you kind of microeconomically put yourself in the shoes of a retail person, they probably understand that, again, if they kind of like mirror think and they sort of anticipate some kind of a parabola in 2025, they know that the 3x or whatever that Bitcoin still might have in it is not going to sort of change their life, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Bitcoin is sound money, and I expect it to eventually become the global monetary reserve. However, it is going to take time. This is probably a 15 to 25-year affair in general, right? And so, because this inflation and this sort of expansion in global money supply pushes people further down the risk curve,
Mm-hmm.
right? We need to understand, for example, if we look at 2016, 2017, that was the cycle of kind of Ethereum, ICOs, and altcoins, right?
Mm,
4 years later, 2021, we had DeFi, GameFi, NFTs, and like a lot of like Ponzi or Ponzinomic like experiments, as well as some like metaverse stuff like in late 2021, right?
yeah.
Now, the way I see it is the rapidly growing money supply around the world is mentally affecting kind of people's mental health, and also possibly even people's hormones, like at a molecular level. A lot of like, not many people make a connection between like fiat money and mental health, but Bitcoiners talk about that a lot. And they've been talking about this since like 2014. And this is why I jokingly say that all of the Bitcoin maxi literature was kind of perfect preparation for this, because I jokingly say that we will probably see Weimar before we see La Belle Epoque, right? And
Mm,
so essentially, I think that we will see hyper meme coinization before we see hyper Bitcoinization, right?
mm,
And uh, it is logical in my mind that the core altcoin narrative of each cycle needs to become quote unquote crazier, right?
mm,
And even beyond crypto, if you look at financial bubbles and technological bubbles, the asset class or the asset category that particularly lends itself well to parabolas or bubble-like formation. It's things that are difficult to value. It's things that people don't really have a clear framework or a clear consensus as to how to price them. And from this particular perspective, I think the fact that meme coins don't have any revenue, and in fact, they take this a level further and they don't even offer a technological product or any sort of software or a platform, it's actually a huge advantage. It's actually a gigantic advantage, in fact, because and I know this sounds like weird and almost sort of I, paradoxical, but if there's no clear metrics other than price itself and a few derivatives of price, then it is a perfect product for these sort of parabolic type moves to occur. And
Mm.
again, as I'm saying this, you please differentiate between me, sort of the multi-decade predictor, and me, the sort of like the 2 years out person who's trying to find like the biggest category outperformers, right? Because these are two separate jobs.
Let me try to knit some of this together with, I'm going to amend what I originally said to here. I'm still going to stick with this idea that there's the same structural cause here, which is this depreciation of money and people feeling like it's like the frog boiling in water slowly, right? And what that's causing is people don't feel like they have a path to attain the same wealth that their parents did. And so they're seeking these alternative methods. And on the one hand, you have the thing which is probably long-term sustainable, which is just a better or a different type of money that has properties which are very different from fiat currencies. But then there's the other behavior that this all induces, which is basically people wanting to go to the casino and press the red button until they solve their financial problems. And if you look throughout the course of history in crypto, there have been these cycles of different altcoins, and they kind of have to get more and more ridiculous each time. And that actually kind of mirrors what you see in, with injections of fiat money. It has to get bigger and bigger each time to have the same effect, right? This is the analogy of the drug addict getting the heroin. You need a bigger and bigger shot to chase the same amount of high. And so what we originally had was ICOs. These were things that promised to be on-chain businesses, right? Okay, I can buy it as a premise. And then there was actually DeFi Summer, which is like, hey, there was actually a lot of very real stuff there. And then there was kind of on-chain JPEGs. It was like, okay, I can squint at this. This is the future of art. Art is sometimes worth a lot of money, and I don't really understand that. And then there was the metaverse. It's like, okay, we're really reaching here. But now we have to just get crazier and crazier and crazier. And it's just like, hey, guys, what if we just, there's nothing here at all. There's nothing to get away from like the very pure, ridiculous thing here, which is just that we just want to make this number go up. It's almost like,
Yep.
we're on fast 10 here, right? This is Dom and The Rock, jumping over highways and stuff like that with their cars. So is that roughly right? And at the end of the day, I guess this is all building to this question of, at the end of the day, do you see any fundamental value with meme coins or maybe any of these past generations of altcoins or NFTs or whatever, or do you think that they're destined to just kind of wash away against the value of something like Bitcoin?
I don't think so. A lot of VCs and sort of technology focused analysts, they hand wave meme coins away as pure brain rot and pure degeneracy and pure hyper gambling.
Mm.
I do not think that that is correct. I do think they have utility, and I would love to tell you why I think that's the case. Um, and we can, of course, debate at a particular snapshot in time whether a particular meme coin or a complex of meme coins is overvalued or undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
But I stress that the utility is not zero.
Mm.
And let me tell you, why. But I think it would be helpful, like in order to understand meme coins, you need to understand like the past history of altcoin cycles. And if you don't mind, I would like to sort of give
Please.
the
Yeah.
audience a brief overview, right?
Mm.
But specifically, I don't want to go way too back, all the way back to 2013, 2014, when the earliest altcoins came about. But I'll specifically focus on kind of 2021, 2022, 2023, right?
Sure.
Recent history. So there's several things happening on like the altcoin side of crypto that, in my opinion, have essentially like forced meme coins to like come to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
We have a massive overproduction of tokens, altcoins, all kinds of things. right? This is kind of a sort of a bitter truth that I believe in. I believe that crypto industry is an asset production industry that is masquerading as a software production industry, right?
Explain that.
So I'll explain it through the several 3 or 4 bullet points. First of all, there's a massive overproduction of tokens of all kinds, and this includes tech tokens, VC-backed tokens, on-chain tokens, meme coin. There's just all of them. There's just way too many of them. Second of all of this tier one centralized exchange listings, by the time they actually happen, the non-scam or like the decently good projects, at least from a purely software perspective, they're valued at like 8, 10, sometimes even 15, 20 billion. So obviously any retail buyer, I mean, they're just going to inevitably suffer a negative 85%. We've seen this over and over this year. If you actually look at all of the 45 Binance listings that have happened this year so far, every single one of them is down except WIF, which is a meme coin, and except Jupiter, which is essentially meme coin trading infrastructure. Literally all of the other like 43 of them are down. Right? That in and of itself should tell you something. Second of all, and this is obviously related to the previous point, is that all of like the altcoin gains or all of the altcoin essentially like valuation increases have been relegated to the private rounds, right? Series A, Series B, seed, etc. And by the time it actually is liquid, it's just way too expensive. The problem with this is that this doesn't build community, and airdrops, which the way I see it is just a sort of like a bribe to make CT hate them less, is essentially like they don't, that doesn't build community at all. What builds community is like a journey. So a snapshot is not enough. Like you need to have people that have been there from the start. And I'll talk about that more later. And essentially, the other reason is even if you put tokens aside, if you look at all of the projects in crypto history that have had any kind of product market fit, literally every single one of them is speculation related, right? So Uniswap, Polymarket, Hyperliquid, DYDX, GMX, Rollbit, Shuffle, etc., etc., etc. Like literally every single one is either directly speculation enabling or benefiting from speculation, right? Frankly, other than BTC, stablecoins, and various forms of speculation, I'm not even sure what the fourth biggest product market fit sort of category in crypto is, but whatever it is, it's like a distant fourth, you know? Furthermore, 99.999% of altcoins simply don't produce the kind of revenue that would justify their valuation. Without naming names, but I'm pretty sure that you can have like 12 examples in your mind. There's dozens of products that are making like $500 per day in revenue, but they're valued at like $8 billion valuation. So like obviously there's a mismatch, and a lot of the founders and VCs and sort of the various sort of think piece writers, they sort of hide under the veneer of regulation, saying that, oh, like we don't give we don't distribute revenues because like the regulations are unclear. But the reality is that that's just an excuse, because if they did sort of distribute revenues in one way or another, then that would enable investment banker types to have like a clear valuation framework, plug it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then they would realize that the fair value of these projects based on cash flow alone should be 80 million, not 8 billion, you know? And so it's
Murad,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
agree with that, but can I push back on
Sure.
one little thing, which is just that
Sure.
I think there's the okay, does this project generate revenue, and then there's does it redistribute that revenue to token holders, and
Right.
the DCF types can still back into the valuation whether or not the tokens get or the cash flows get redistributed, right? So isn't that kind of
Totally.
conflating to?
I was going to mention that in the next bullet point. So even if you look at even if you look at the crypto projects that actually do produce a lot of revenue, um, you know, if you look at their performance since the beginning of the year, it's really quite a mixed bag. I mean, yes, things like Aave is up, things like Banana is up, but then there's 15 to 20 projects that I could list off the top of my head that make over $25 million a year, but are like their performance has been lackluster, not just in 2024. Their performance has been lackluster for a while, which to me is the market telling that crypto markets, they don't seem to value revenue as much as they value hype. And the way I see it, as we move further and further into the inflationary paradigm in the global economy, attention will be valued more relative to fundamentals and cash flows. With every passing day, I think that statement will continue to be more and more true. Why? Because any sort of cash flow based products in a sustainable economy, they need sort of years to mature, and they sort of imply a decade of future cash flows in order to get the current sort of in order to back out the current valuation. But I think increasingly people come to crypto. I think that's always been the case. People came to crypto for those parabolas, for those crazy moves, in order to catch those like insane, like wild price moves. And as even the legit DeFi projects mature, they sort of become more equity-like. And I don't think that that's the stuff that retail is looking for. You know, we can argue whether institutional investors are going to have demand for those kinds of products. Maybe, maybe not. But personally, I'm focused on sort of trying to predict what retail is going to do next year, or in the next year and a half. And to me, that's not what they want. And I think price performance of these coins since January 1st of this year is a testament to my thesis. Last but not least, we have a gigantic amount of unlocks coming in the next 4 to 5 years. Binance Research themselves have put out a piece, I believe, a couple of months ago, saying that there is like 160 billion worth of unlocks that are going to hit the market in the next 3 4 years. So just in general, that's a massive headwind to any kind of price discovery. Finally, the market consciousness, and this includes both retail and institutions, they know that Doge has gone to 100 billion in the past. Shiba Inu has gone to 50 billion in the past. Pepe has gone to 8 billion this year. WIF has gone to 5 billion this year. None of these things have an underlying software. And there's a few more examples from 2021. Putting all of this together, this is proof that the market knows that tokens can go parabolic without a product and without any kind of revenue. So this is no longer a matter of debate. And a lot of people are starting to believe in this self-fulfilling prophecy that if we already have 6 or 7 of those examples, and last cycle wasn't even a meme coin focused cycle, then we could extrapolate this and we can see this at a much bigger scale this time around. And if you buy into the idea that the core altcoin narrative needs to get crazier and crazier, meme coins are a perfect fit. Finally, if you study past cycles, the categories that outperformed the most in year 3, which in this case is 2016, 2020, and 2024, end up being the categories that go straight parabolic and ballistic in the subsequent year, which in this sort of example is 2017, 2021, and 2025 respectively. Again, if you go on CoinMarketCap and you check out the first 3 pages today, which is like the top 300 crypto assets in the world by market cap, roughly, you will see that, and many people have talked about this, very few things have outperformed BTC this year, right? Obviously, the bulk of institutional money is just going straight into BTC and avoiding altcoins altogether. So there's a major dispersion happening. This is a maturation of the space. And if you look at the only 42 things that have outperformed Bitcoin this year, at the 13 of them at the very top are memes. There's some AI stuff at the bottom as well, some infrastructure stuff at the bottom as well. But with the latter, we're talking about 80%, 150% returns. While with memes, you have multiple things that have gone up 10x or more. And I'm sure you've noticed this as well. And so to me, I think a lot of people that are knee deep in tech alts and tech alt safts, they want to gaslight you into believing that the mania, quote unquote, we had in March 2024 was like the top of memes. However, I think that was only one of 3 parabolas. And the way I see it, there is two giant parabolas that are yet to come in 2025. And I strongly believe, and I can give you another 70 reasons why 2025 is going to be dominated by memes. And I think that we are in the middle of the meme coin super cycle. Specifically, I think this is a meme coin cycle. And next year, meme coins are going to be on the forefront of every media piece, newspaper, social media, and we are still super early.
Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Namada, the shielded asset hub protecting the future of the multi-chain. Namada is a chain that's near and dear to my heart because in previous seasons of Bell Curve, we've talked about how the cardinal original sin of most blockchains is not thinking about privacy from the beginning, but also because if we want to onboard a whole bunch of applications, it doesn't work in a default transparency setting. So Namada not only brings about a better future that we all want, but it's going to help onboard a ton of new applications. So Namada introduces a novel shielding reward system. The way that it works is if you hold your assets in the shielded set, you help strengthen Namada's data protection guarantees and collect non-rewards in return. Namada will initially support IBC and Ethereum-based assets, but eventually the idea is for this to expand into a comprehensive hub for all assets. Really, really excited about what the folks over at Namada are doing. I highly recommend that you go and check them out at namada.net. You can follow their mainnet launch, which is soon TM. Very exciting. Tell them that I sent you. Click the link, bottom of the show notes.
Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Supra, the new blazing fast, vertically integrated L1, which helps you scale your dApp. If you are a builder, you're probably dealing with some combination of cost, complexity, and fragmentation of existing solutions. So if you're building over an ETH L2 land, everything's feeling a little bit fragmented at the moment. And if you're building in Solana, everything is fast and on one layer, but maybe you're limited in terms of what you can do with your AppSpace. So Supra is rolling out a new product called Supra Containers. So you can head over to supra.com/containers. To learn more. They offer dedicated customizable app spaces running on Supra's 500,000 TPS Layer 1 blockchain. That gives you complete control over gas tokens and fees. So some cool things you can do, you get the freedom you can use your own token, create local fee markets, or even go gasless, whatever you want. So this product isn't live yet, but because you are a faithful listener of Bell Curve, you get notified first. So head over to supra.com/containers. Thank me later. All right, I've got some follow-up questions for you here. So, looking back at past cycles, I think one of the trends is there's kind of this new innovation, right? Which could be NFTs or DeFi or whatever, or like yield farming is probably a pretty good example of this. And there's a bunch of money that's being made originally, but then because we're dealing in things that are digital, the barriers to creating new supply end up going down, the supply ends up going up, and then price ends up collapsing in on itself. And the example that I would give you is, people love to blame NFT prices on Blur, right? Which is, as soon as there was liquidity, everyone that was bag holding JPEGs that were worth $40,000 had this incentive to sell. They were like, maybe we'll never see this again. And then the market ended up collapsing. And so, you can make the same analogy with something like Pump.Fund, where there was like 5,000 memes being churned out on a daily basis. So what is to stop this dynamic of bringing on so much supply that you inevitably end up drowning the price from happening to meme coins?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. That's actually a question I get the most from anybody I talk to meme coins about. This is how I see the situation. There are already, I believe, 3 or 4 million meme coins, and I think by the end of next year, it's probably going to be like 100 million, 200 million. It might as well be infinity, but it doesn't matter. I think what Pump Fund does, it accelerates the split of the meme coin asset class into two categories. One is what we call PvP, and what's also known as hyper gambling. And that's essentially like super short-term scalps, like one-day-old memes, like immediate launches, like quick rugs, trying to turn like one soul into 20 soul, and essentially Pump Fund itself, like very, very fast, very short attention span things, right? And that's pretty much like 99% of all meme coins, 99.99999% of all meme coins, and that's going to continue to be the case. Then on the other side, you have something what we jokingly refer to as PvE. And for lack of a better example, that's essentially people trying to build the next Doge. That's people genuinely believing in like 10, $50 billion market caps. That's people trying to build like a long-lasting movement, long-lasting brand, a cult, like we call them, maybe even something that's going to be multi-cycle, right? And personally, what I'm focused on is the latter. And what I advise everybody to focus on is the latter. The way I see it is, and this is a very important concept that you brought up, meme coin production per day, right?
Mm.
Back when WIF and PopCat were coming about in November, December 2023, the meme coin production per day was like 200, 300 per day, right? Today, it's like 5,000 per day. A couple of months from now, it's going to be 50,000 per day. And at the peak of the mania, it might even be 1 million per day. Who knows, right? Ultimately, the way I see it is a pyramid. And at the pyramid, you essentially have at the very bottom, you have trash, you have shit coins, excuse my French, and there's going to be like quadrillions of them. It doesn't matter. Then you go a little bit higher, you have like something with like a bit more meaning, a bit more longevity, and so on and so forth. And you kind of reach a point where, let's say, you have 100 solid memes with a solid community. I think you identify those 100. Within those 100, you're going to have 20 to 25 of what I call as cults. Within those 20 to 25 cults, you're going to have 5 to 10 things which are going to be like lifestyle brands or that are going to be consumer brands or whatever. And then within those 10, you're going to have 5 things which I personally refer to as like movements or mission coins. And ultimately, at the very, very, very far end, um, who knows whether they're going to emerge or not. I believe they will. Some people think I'm crazy, but essentially I think one or two of them will get close to being what I think are going to be like neo religions essentially. And this is a little bit like more sci-fi and a little bit more out there, but essentially, like, I've listed to you all of the trends inside our industry, right? But again, like I've said at the beginning of our call, there's also things happening outside in the world, and not just in the past 4 years, like in the past 15 years, there's a lot of trends, right? Essentially, like loneliness is skyrocketing, mental health issues are skyrocketing, like fertility is dropping, like family formation is dropping, and a lot of this is also tied together with the fact that religion is, at the risk of sounding blasphemous, um, losing product market fit in the developed world. And if you actually look at what religion is, it's a very multidimensional topic. And it's essentially a Swiss Army knife offering a bunch of different things to people, right? To some people around the world, it's offering community. For others, it's offering guidance. For others, it's offering something to believe in and a feeling of being a part of something greater than yourself. Of course, it's also offering sort of lifestyle advice, guidance, answers to very difficult questions about existence, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you can sense where I'm getting with this. And what I think is going to happen, I actually think it's already been happening since 2005, 2010, different brands and different communities in the world, in the secular world, they're essentially unbundling religion, right? They're unbundling religion. And you can see glimpses of this with video games, with yoga, with Burning Man, with keto and veganism and different diets, with like Soul Cycle, with like lifting and like gym lifestyles, with carnivore. But also you see this with different assets. I'm sure you've noticed how extremely culty both the brand and the asset is for Tesla, for Apple stock, for GME that we've seen in 2021, and notably for Bitcoin. And you can also, if you've been in the trenches, you know how unbelievably culty Dogecoin and Shiba Inu communities have been, not only in 2020 and 2021, but also even before then, and to some extent even right now. And if you've been particularly in the trenches today, you know how this applies to the new crop of meme coins as well, right? And I think, and this is kind of the crux of my thesis. The crux of my thesis is the following: it's the fact that people are waking up to the truth that in crypto, the token is the product. The software is not the primary product. That's the secondary product, maybe even a tertiary product. The core product is the token. And that has always been the case. That's been the case for the past 11 years. And so meme coins, they are a counterattack of the trenches. They are a populist movement because people are tired of VCs having monopolized the wealth creation from crypto tech and crypto tech tokens. People are realizing that all tokens, and it doesn't matter if it's a tech token or a meme token, all of them are simply tables at the casino. And so the 20-year-olds have started to ask themselves, why should we play at your tables, which launch at $15 billion valuations and don't really have any users anyway, when we can have our own tables? Now, I actually don't care whether something is an altcoin or with a GitHub or it's a meme coin. Now, what actually matters is something completely different. What I am coming to realization in the past 6 months is that altcoins have actually never been about technology, and meme coins are actually not about memes either. And this applies to NFTs as well. What all of these things are, they are simply tokenized communities. They're tokenized groups of people with a financialized token layer, and they're essentially simply using different techniques and different narratives in order to recruit people for their cause, in order to recruit people, grow the community. Obviously, as the community grows, price grows as well, right? And so if you agree with me that the token is the product rather than the software, then the code itself never actually mattered. Because if you put yourself in the shoes of an average retail participant, which is the people that caused the parabolas in the first place, they never cared about tech, and they never will care about tech in their life. What they actually care about is, and like they don't care about some blockchain being more private or faster or ZK snarks. They don't care. What they care about is, probably to the greatest extent, making money, having fun, and belonging. And if you accept this thesis, then you actually realize that meme coins are a better product than altcoins, because they are simpler. There's no unlocks. Everything is circulating. They don't have any of the countless problems that NFTs had. They don't have any of the countless bugs that DeFi smart contract platforms have, and so on and so forth. I'm sure if any of you guys have been following my Twitter, you've seen a list of the 50 things in which I think meme coins are better than altcoins, right? And so if you agree with me that the token is the product, then it's clear that meme coins have superior product market fit. So essentially, tying all of this together, you want to find PvE cults that can become movements, can become brands, can even become multi-cycle neo-religions. And that's how you make the next 100x, maybe even 1000x in crypto in 2025. Simple as that.
How do you actually determine what is a good cult in this framework? I've seen you tweet about this, and this is where I'll record a little section at the top of this, but not financial advice. None of this is financial advice. Do your own research, etc. But you tweet about this a lot anyway, Murad. So I'm going to use actual names, which is like Popcat and Giga, right? As potential communities here. Can you walk us through, obviously, don't review any state secrets or, any proprietary sort of secret sauce that you have, but like, can you give us a sense of like, how do you diligence whether or not these, cults have the potential to endure many generations? Like, what are you looking for here?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'd just like to briefly return to my previous point. You know, if you actually look at traditional tech alt, I think you would agree with me that some of its valuation factor is legitimate, and some of it valuation factor is like narrative driven or sort of mimetic, right? I think if you look at legit altcoins, their sort of legit valuation component is something along the lines of kind of like probability times magnitude of future revenue. And then the investors essentially hope that there's going to be some kind of a fee switch in the future, and they extrapolate with that. But still, that's like 10 to 20% of the equation, with the other 70 to 80% of the equation, just based on the nature of the crypto space, it's speculative, it's mimetic, right? Now,
I actually tend to think it's kind of bearish when like these meme coins end up being like, hey, this is our plan for utility. I've joked about this, but it's like,
absolutely,
but like,
absolutely,
what? That's not why anyone is buying you. Stop trying to
absolutely.
do that. Honestly, just pump out more
I
memes,
totally
right?
agree.
Like make
I
people
totally agree.
laugh.
I
It's kind of
totally agree with
bearish,
you.
you know?
Yes.
Like,
Yes, I
yeah.
totally agree with you, because revenues are bearish in a hyperinflationary economy. You
Mhm.
want maximum attention, and you don't want revenues, because revenues essentially tether you to some kind of a metric, which creates a ceiling. This is, by the way, if you look at meme coin history, a lot of them create utility in bear markets because they want a floor. If you actually like study like utility and revenue, you will realize that like utility and revenue, they create a floor, but they also create a ceiling. So essentially, like relatively speaking, a utility and revenue, they're good in bear markets, but they're bad in bull markets, right?
Mm.
Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think meme coin utility is zero, because I think you need to look at, SaaS, software as a service. It's often offered as like a B2B or a B2C service, right?
Mhm.
I think the correct way to analyze meme coins is as a C2C service. So it's like a customer to customer service. Essentially, like I've been saying, it's a tokenized community. And I really want to stress the fact that the utility is not zero, because if you actually look at the best meme coins, it's a lot of the things that I mentioned, right? It's entertainment, it's a collective artistic expression, it's sort of a shared reality, a shared universe, it's hope, it's friendships, it's community, it's like loneliness reduction. And as people like spend more and more hours per day on average online around the world, it effectively becomes like a social guild, like an MMORPG guild. And believe me, for lonely people, the value of that is non-zero. And ultimately, it doesn't matter that there's no revenues, because essentially, instead of revenues, people participate in these services, or they buy these services by simply buying the token. So revenue is essentially expressed by the capital appreciation of the price. Finally, all of this is without even mentioning the token itself, which offers volatility and is like a trading vehicle, right? So meme coins definitely the meme coin valuation is like 90% speculative or mimetic or narrative driven, but I do want to stress the fact that there is some kind of a non-zero utility here. And
Mhm.
like very few people talk about this, people are like 99% of people just say, oh, it's just like degeneracy, but it's not, it's not. Yes, these things can be overvalued, and they're probably going to be crazy overvalued next year, but please understand that the utility is there,
Mm.
right? And so, how do you identify cults? You need to look at the list of things I mentioned and essentially compare which one of them does those services better,
Mm.
offers those services better. And this is a big reason why I have multiple theories. Like, one of my theories is that we're eventually going to see a transition away from joke coins to like more serious meme coins. That's one.
Mm.
Two, we're going to see a transition from animal coins to non-animal coins, right? And so on and so forth. Because if you tell an average person on the street or even in crypto the word meme coin, they think, oh, it's like a funny dog or it's a funny cat, right? But if you actually think of it, it's really just a group of people with kind of a token uniting them. So it can be literally anything. And I look at the blockchain distribution a lot. I look at the Gini coefficient a lot. I look at who the whales are, who the supporters are on social media, who they are. Everybody in crypto knows each other. It's a relatively small space, very interconnected space. So ultimately, it boils down to people, and the quality of the people, the quality of the community. It's going to define how far the coin is going to go.
Mm.
Last but not least, I look at the nature of the meme itself. I think being a real meme, like Doge, like Pepe, like Giga, these are things that have existed for years before they became tokenized. And I think that's going to be a major advantage, because when it's going to be a Keynesian beauty contest next year, right? In a game theoretic search for a Schelling point. So people are going to be magnetized by things that they've already seen in the past. So that's like one factor. There's many other factors. And the other thing is, obviously, like I said, that the ultimate dream of a meme coin is to become the next religion. So you want to hang out in their discords, in their telegrams, in their social spaces, and see like how much of a cult or how much of a like a passion, how much of a religious vibe there is in that community. This is not exactly like quantitative or sometimes difficult to quantify, but you can get a sense for this. It's a little bit subjective, but you can get a sense for this. Last but
Mm.
not least, I am particularly bullish, like I've already mentioned, on things that, and this is kind of my next big theory right now, is meme coins started with essentially tokenizing like funny dog pictures and cute cat pictures or whatever. But I think The next evolution is a little bit more abstract, and we're going to start to see tokenization of ideas, tokenization of philosophies, tokenization of ideologies. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
And it ultimately boils down to the average inspiration per capita, right? Because I think these movement coins and mission coins, some of them are going to go to $100 billion valuations or more. And the reason for that is something we call free cult labor. Free cult labor essentially is people working for their bags, crudely speaking, and different communities do it to different extents. But if somebody's super passionate about this meme coin or this meme or this idea, they will, and a lot of these holders are like engineers, designers, influencers, writers, etc. They will offer their labor for free. And a lot of this labor, they would charge an outside company $5,000, $10,000 to do. But for the sake of their meme coin, for the sake of their bags, crudely speaking, they're going to do it for free. And so you need to ask yourself which meme coins are going to trigger the most free cult labor. And in Silicon Valley speak, it essentially collapses user acquisition costs to zero. You know what I mean? And so the reason I believe in movement coins and mission coins so much is because my theory is that they're going to trigger like a much bigger amount of inspiration in a person. I think when you look at dog coins and cat coins and animal coins, they like people will probably not be like jumping out of bed at 5:30 in the morning just to like hustle for the sake of it, quite as much as something with a bit more substance to it, right? So this is kind of like loosely the framework and the theories that I have, and I'm kind of on the lookout for, as crazy as it sounds, for like the next like religion, for the next movement, for like the next crazy thing.
All right, Murad, I've got something to run by you here. What if I told you there was a meme coin, that wasn't necessarily, based on the picture of a dog or a cat or something like that, but it was based around a set of values. And this set of values was sort of like a stoic lifestyle. It's on saving instead of spending. It's on eating meat. And it's on custodying your own assets. Is Bitcoin.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like that was kind of a trite build up here to a lot of what you're describing, right? The way that you view these meme assets, it's kind of like, what's the difference between a cult and a religion? I actually got asked that by my history teacher in 6th grade, and the answer ended up being scale. And so my question to you is Bitcoin a meme coin?
So Bitcoin is the original cult. It
Mhm.
is the strongest. It is the strongest cult in crypto by far. It might actually be the strongest cult around a financial asset ever created,
Mhm.
and that will continue to be the case for many decades. So this is actually exactly like what you're implying here is exactly why I brought up horseshoe theory initially. Is that even though Bitcoin is a money and meme coins are something else, that cult element is something that's in the middle of their Venn diagram, right? And ultimately, um, I think BTC is a special case because I think there is true utility because in the blockchain that it offers, um, there are certain anxiety reducing sort of guarantees or near guarantees that provide a service. And
Mhm.
that service is sort of obviously like a near certainty about like no future printing and sort of the certainty around unseizability of your currency units, right? So every asset in the world has a memetic component to a different extent, right? And I think like things like Maker or Frax or whatever, they have like a smaller memetic component and like a much bigger like how should I say this fundamental component, right?
Yeah.
I think BTC as a neo gold replacer, it has a fundamental component, but without a doubt there is that memetic premium, that cult premium there as well, right? So it's like each of these crypto assets, they need to be analyzed as a sum of these various premia. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But without a doubt, Bitcoin is a neo-religious movement for sure.
It's funny the way that you describe this as maybe being the next evolution of these sort of tokenized communities where, if you look at the way that L1s have developed is they don't just okay, there are the technical set of trade-offs on what the L1 actually does, right? Like you can build smart contracts on Ethereum. It's not really possible to do that on Bitcoin. And Solana's a lot faster, and they want to do it all on one layer instead of scaling into multiple layers. But the other funny thing about the difference in the technical architecture of each of these L1s is that there is very much a type of guy or gal that subscribes to this. And Bitcoin is kind of like the original. It's kind of like the Catholic Church of cryptos, right? It's very kind of rigid. It's stoic.
Sure.
It's pure, right? And then Ethereum evolved as a counter reaction, I think, to that. A lot of it's based off obviously Vitalik's personality, but it's like optimistic and idealistic, and what if we could do this, and very open, and everyone come and I'm going to get on stage in a unicorn outfit and dance around, and that's the vibe, right? And then Solana is a counter reaction to that, right? And the values of the people in that community are: I'm product oriented, I'm engineering oriented, I'm pragmatic, I'm a shipper. I don't care about all of this, foofy doofy stuff. Don't tell me about, auction this and mechanism that and ZK whatever. I just want to ship product. And it's
Yep.
just funny. What you're describing, right, is actually kind of already manifest in some of these L1 tokens, at least the way that I see it.
Absolutely. And L1s can definitely be studied as sort of the churches of the modern day. And there's without a doubt that premium there. I jokingly told somebody a few weeks ago, I said, Bitcoin is the church of purity. Solana is the church of degeneracy. And Ethereum is like a weird in between. And that's why it's underperforming this cycle. Because at least from that like memetic perspective, because BTC optimizes for like the store of value monetary aspects, and Solana optimizes for sort of like the performance side of it, right? And then Ethereum is like a middle ground between the two. And so it's like it doesn't go all in either, and it's kind of stuck in this middle zone, right?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think if BTC goes to like 75k 100k or higher this cycle, Ethereum will probably have pockets of outperformance, and it will probably end up doing well. But to be completely blunt, I am not a super long term, like on 30-year timescales. Like if I went into like a 30-year coma, I would prefer to have the vast majority of it in BTC, because I don't think, like, we can analyze Ethereum and Solana from like the technical point of view, but I have a very particular opinion on why Ethereum and Solana tokens both got monetized. And essentially, I view them as simply grand casinos. I think Ethereum became a quasi money in 2017 during the ICO era. In order to gamble on the ICOs, in order to speculate or invest in ICOs, you simply needed to have ETH in your wallets. And as a lot of those ETH are sitting idly in the MetaMask wallets, that factor at scale, it monetizes the currency. That same dynamic continued in 2020, 2021. In order to participate in all the Ponzi's, in order to participate in DeFi, in order to participate in yield farming, you needed the ETH units. And that all of that demand to gamble, quote unquote, it drives the global demand to store ETH in your wallet. And that effect essentially leads to this quasi monetization of currency. If the exact same thing is happening on Solana right now with meme coins, whether you're needing to buy PvP meme coins or PvE meme coins, you need to have some Solana to do it. You need to pay gas to do it. And to some extent, Solana DeFi drives that SOL demand as well. But without this sort of desire to gamble, these neither ETH nor SOL would be valued where they are. And ultimately, if you compare them to BTC purely from a monetary point of view, if I was a sovereign wealth fund or a billionaire, I would be putting the vast majority of my trust into BTC, because I don't care about I don't care about those small scale gambles, right? I care about the absolute purity and robustness of the Neo Gold. So I pretty like, yes, ETH could go to 10K and SOL could go to 1,000, but on like multi-cycle time lengths, I think BTC is going to absorb the vast majority of that monetary premium.
I've got a maybe broader question for you just about cycles in general. You're obviously a student of history and have paid pretty close attention to different crypto cycles. And something that people love to debate about is like the 4-year cycle, etc. And I would love to get your perspective here on whether or not you think that that is still going to be a thing. And I'm intuiting a little bit, but it seems like your view of the world is it's going to be highly inflationary. There's going to be some sort of hyperinflation and maybe like even a social conflict. And so I'd be curious, like, what's your sort of view of the future when it comes to Bitcoin cycles? And then how does this sort of end? And how is there eventually a shakeout, from the rest of these maybe not so, long lasting assets that everyone's playing around in today?
So that's a great question. There are many theories around this. A lot of people believe that the 4-year cycle isn't so much due to the BTC mining and halving dynamics, but rather because there are some believe 3.5-year cycles in traditional macro, some believe there are 4.5-year cycles in traditional macro, and then the halving of BTC is like somewhat coincidental with those. I'm sure you've heard of many of those as well. So to me, it's not so much about BTC halving as it is about what's going on in sort of TradFi and the global liquidity and central banks in general, and these sort of sine wave like liquidity cycles that we've been witnessing in the past few decades, right? My gut feel is that eventually the 4-year cycles will break down, right? Whether this is going to happen this cycle, I don't know. I kind of think it's going to be a 4-year cycle again, just because it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And like people are positioning and preparing and talking about it a lot. And so it's almost, people are almost like psyopsing each other into kind of like making that happen, so to speak, right? But ultimately, I think at some point, there is going to be a period where the S&P 500 is going to have a decade of underperformance, if not stagnation, in real terms. And during that period, crypto industry probably underperforms relative to past cycles as well. So that's one. Two, if we get a recession of some kind, either in late 2020s or early 2030s or whatever, crypto will probably suffer as well. And not just price wise, like time wise, that bear market might be longer than the usual year long bear markets that we've seen in the past. So the future is uncertain, but I think at some point, the 4-year cycles will break down. And as crypto matures, that will only make sense. Not to mention that the actual halving has a less and less effect, because I mean we've gone from like 6% or 3% to like lower, and so it's just like not moving the needle as much anymore. But ultimately, the variable that predicts BTC performance the most is year-on-year rate of global money supply growth. So that's probably the variable that you want to be paying attention to the most. And it itself has had these 4 years, like 3.7-year cycles or whatever. And I think that crypto has mirrored that. But if like whatever happens to the global money supply, that's what's probably like Bitcoin is probably going to like be counter reaction to that.
Yeah. What do you think about NFTs? The way that you talk about meme coins is how I had originally conceived of NFTs, these online communities. They're not particularly large, but they're extremely engaged. And there was obviously a massive price run up for a bunch of different NFT communities and hasn't really fully recovered. I'd be curious, what are your thoughts on NFTs in general?
They're the same thing. They're the exact same thing. But there are certain dynamics that are going to make meme coins become 100 times bigger than NFTs. So first of all, if you look at a typical successful NFT collection, what you usually end up having is 3,000 or so holders promoting 10,000 illiquid JPEGs, which obviously runs into certain constraints and certain ceilings as far as community growth goes. And so there's also the prohibitively expensive notion of a floor price when it comes to successful NFT collections, which, let's be real, the less fortunate cannot afford. However, meme coins are essentially the reincarnation of the best parts of ICOs and the best parts of NFTs put together. And it's what you now have compared to NFTs is you now have 100,000 or more people effectively promoting a single liquid token. And I'm sure you can do the math and you can see how much more effective and efficient that is, right? So instead of promoting 10,000 different and illiquid floor price JPEGs, you now have an entire army of schizos promoting just a singular token. And doesn't matter if you're rich or doesn't matter if you're poor. You can be the richest person in the world or the poorest person in the world. You can participate in this. And that is just going to make the parabola so much bigger than even CryptoPunks or Bored Ape Yacht Club. And we've seen this. We've seen this in 2021. You've seen how much higher SHIB or Doge went compared to like the top 3 NFT collections. And I think we're going to go even crazier this time around. So at their core, in terms of like what they actually are, they're tokenized communities. But from a financial and liquidity perspectives, meme coins are much better. They're much better. And it's not even by design. It's emergent. What's happening is the degens at crypto Twitter, they're constantly experimenting with new asset creation, new dynamics creation, new liquidity creation. And we've sort of like a swarm of bees and birds, we have emergently arrived at the idea that capital wants to go into things that are easiest to pump, and meme coins are much easier to pump than NFTs.
I think that there's a lot of validity to that particular idea. Definitely, just the the unit price alone, I think, makes it very prohibitive for people to get into NFT these days. Final question for you on this: where do you bucket like Doge and Litecoin and that era of coins? Because they, something that's funny that doesn't really happen in cryptos, chains never really die. They have their initial run up, and then maybe they never really reach their previous all-time highs, but they kind of pump like lower, like slightly lower and lower each successive cycle. They still have, in the case of Litecoin and like ETH Classic and things like that, like billion-dollar valuations. Dogecoin obviously has a much higher valuation than that. So I would just be curious, like, where do you bucket these like old coins, which kind of mean something, kind of don't, kind of just are liquidity sponges, sort of just get traded? What are those assets?
So not financial advice, but I strongly recommend people to not touch anything old. There are extremely few examples of coins that have repeatedly made new highs over more than 2 cycles. So the odds are stacked against you. I don't even think Litecoin is going to make new highs. Dogecoin maybe barely, but that's still what, like a 4x from here, 5x. If you study past cycles, the things that go up the most is always new things. That's the first thing. Second of all, new things are essentially going into price discovery without any quote unquote backholders, without any resistance, without any sell orders in the order books, quite to the extent that the old, like Litecoin barely made a new high last cycle and collapsed. Dogecoin, yeah, it did make new highs 3 cycles in a row, but I think, first of all, from a memetic perspective, the actual Doge meme itself peaked in 2012 or so, maybe 2018 or whatever, in terms of like actual frequency of usage. I think Elon Musk pumping it really hard in January, February 2021 overcooked the trade a little bit in trader parlance. And so he's been mentioning Doge a bunch of times in the last 2 weeks, but Doge like barely pumps. Like it doesn't work anymore, And
He called his government
Go-
task
so-
force DOG. It was like Department of Government Excess. You know, if Trump gets elected, he's gonna appoint Elon to be head of this department. And it literally spells Doge, and Doge didn't move.
yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. You need crazier stuff than Doge. That's just the way it works. Because there's so much more money in the system than there was in 2020, the world demands like more schizo assets. The world demands crazier things. That's just the nature of the monetary and the social system. And the social cultural zeitgeist, it needs something beyond Doge. It needs something crazy. So you got to be on the lookout for new things and like crazier things with a stronger message. Because just like a tokenized animal, I think it has certain limits, and you need something that fills people's hearts with much greater fire,
I agree, man. Murad, this has been a fascinating episode, man. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. If folks want to like find out more about you, follow you on Twitter, I don't know, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at muststopmurad. So yeah, I pretty much tweet about memes like 6-7 times a day. You're welcome to read more of my thoughts there.
Awesome. Murad, this has been really interesting, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Want to give a final shout out to Namada. Again, a team that is near and dear to my heart. They are building the Shielded Asset Hub, which is protecting the future multi-chain. Talked a little bit about how that works in the mid-roll, but for now, what I would highly recommend that you do is go check them out. They're in their mainnet launch phase. You can follow along with everything at namada.net. You can start rewarding yourself by shielding your actions and strengthening data privacy for all across the multi-chain. So thanks again, Namada, for all the great work that you're doing.